Welcome back to Focus on Licking County on Talk 790 WHTH. I'm News Director Dave Downey. Thanks for joining us. Our guest during this third segment of the show will be Abby Reynolds, Communications Officer with the Military Veterans Resource Center. She joined us in the second segment of the show, and there was so much that we wanted to talk about, Abby. You were gracious enough to hang around, so I appreciate that. Let's go quickly back to the Veterans Workshop that's going to be taking place in January. You talk about these different things. How about a success story of maybe somebody who's been involved there and said, boy, this really worked out well for me?
Sure. At one of our career workshops, actually, that our Kelly Coons out of our Dayton office organized recently, she had a veteran get employed because at her last workshop that she did, she had a veteran. That she had invited employers to help out with the mock interview sessions. One lady there was from an HR rep from Lowe's, and they were looking for veterans with hazmat certifications, which the veteran at the time didn't have, but she was so impressed with him in the interview and his skills and what he'd done in the military that she said, if you get this certification, we would be really interested. So we helped him get the pay for his certification, and he now is employed with Lowe's.
I mean, it's nice when you hear these kind of things. And again, because the numbers are so much higher than the general population when it comes to unemployment rate for veterans, I would have to assume maybe they may be a little nervous coming in, speaking of the veterans now, because as you mentioned, it's a different culture when you talk about the military.
Definitely. It's there is that sense of nervousness, I think, for a lot of them. On the flip side, I've had some HR managers tell me that some veterans interview great. They've some of the best interviews they've ever had, but not every veteran is going to be comfortable if the military is all that they've known. Maybe they won't be comfortable stepping into the civilian arena, and so that's critical. That what our workshops can do is set you up for what an interview is going to be like with an employer and help you learn how to talk about your experiences in ways that employers will understand. Translating skills is one of the things that is key for veterans, because a lot of time there may not be a direct equivalent for what they did in the military to what they can do now post-service, but in the workshop we'll really show you how to think about the skills that you had and how they can translate to a civilian job.
Is there a fee for veterans who want to take part in this? Is it free? How does that work?
It is free. Yes, all they have to do is just register with us, and it's an important service. We think that a lot should take advantage of if you're currently looking for a job and the internet isn't doing it for you.
Let's again remind folks when it is, where it's going to be taking place, and the time that the workshop is going to be taking place.
Sure. It's going to be 1395 East Dublin Granville Road, which is based in Columbus. And so it's going to be from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And I'll reiterate again that we're going to provide you lunch.
Yeah, because a lot of veterans, they do like to eat. Let's be honest about that. And finally, before we move on to some other subjects, is this the only workshop throughout the year? Do you folks try to do this often?
Yes. Each of our 6 resource centers try to do one once per quarter, or I guess once per season. So we'll do one in the spring, summer, fall, and winter. And so there's lots of opportunities throughout the year to take them. Some vets will, even if you're underemployed and this isn't really, or you're in a job where I'm like, this isn't really what I see myself doing, and I didn't think this didn't turn out the way I would expect. We see a lot of veterans in that situation with part-time employment or employment they're not satisfied with come in and sign up for the workshops too, to try and just get some job satisfaction similar to what they had in the military.
Okay, we've talked a lot about veterans now and doing things to help them find assistance, but it dawned on me as we're talking about this, we haven't talked about veterans' families or their spouses. Are there some programs available through the Military Veterans Resource Center that help spouses and families of veterans?
Yes, we will help military spouses and dependents. So as long as their spouse had served in the military honorably, absolutely, we're going to get them assistance, because our mission, we try and ask what's best for the veteran, and in many cases that's helping the spouse as much as helping the veteran. For example, a few months ago we had a military spouse come in. She was the primary supporter of the family, and she was there were some financial struggles there. She was about to start a job at a daycare, but she needed an influenza shot before she could start, but really couldn't pay for it. So we went ahead and paid for it so that she could get some gainful employment in her life.
Is it, and I don't want to say it's hard to believe, everybody has their own problems and issues you want to deal with, but boy, when you think about that, and it may be simple for you and I to say, let's go get a flu shot, but when you think about that, that's amazing that something like that may have kept this person from finding employment, that you're able to do that.
Exactly. It's a lot of times it is the small things, and a lot of veterans we've seen increasingly come in for food assistance, and if it's the military family, if it's a spouse, we'll go ahead and give them a 3-day supply of emergency food. So it's maybe it's just those 3 days can tide them over until the paycheck comes in. So
now I can see why you're a communications officer, because you went nicely into the next subject that I wanted to talk about, and that's the Military Veterans Resource Center Food Bank. I'm not sure folks knew that you had that. I quite honestly, I didn't know that you had done that. That's why we have you in today, is to talk about things like this. Talk a little bit about that food bank.
Exactly. Well, we do have a food bank in all of our resource centers are equipped with food to provide to a veteran or a family who may be in need. But we recently, as effective December 1st, we have officially joined the Mid-Ohio Food Bank Partner Network. So which will allow us to definitely help more veterans. We can purchase food from Mid-Ohio Food Bank at a reduced rate, so we can purchase more food. And it's just become increasingly, over this year even, I've had the career specialists tell me that they've seen more and more veterans come in for this need. They need to put food on the table for their family. And so it really is a critical resource. A lot of times our veterans will come in and they say, well, I need a resume, but the coach will sit down with them and learn about their situation. And it's like, well, do you need help with groceries too? And a lot of times the answer may be yes. And so it's just, we can provide that emergency assistance right away. They don't have to fill out paperwork and wait for that to come in.
Yeah, it's a great thing that you folks are doing. Again, one of the many things that you're doing. You're listening to Focus on Licking County on Talk 790 WHTH. I'm News Director Dave Downey. Thanks for joining us. Our guest during this final segment of today's show is Abby Reynolds. She's the Communication Officer for Military Veterans Resource Center based in Columbus. Talked a little bit about the food bank, and also there's a scholarship program that's available for veterans. Talk a little bit about that, Abby.
Absolutely. It's our Gary Cox Scholarship, named in honor of Gary Cox, who was a veteran and a volunteer with us, who died a few years ago. And it's really intended to be used for veterans who need further education to get them gainful employment or training or employer-related tools. So the amounts can vary, but generally it is now, starting this fall, it became available for veterans, and a lot of times the coaches themselves will identify this would be a great veteran qualified for this, so they just fill out the application in our office and can hand it in. And actually, we've had success with it. Just recently, one of our career specialists was meeting with a veteran. He didn't really know what he wanted to do. He ended up, as she got to know him a little bit more, is multilingual. He was originally from Haiti, could speak French, English, Haitian, Creole, and is teaching himself Arabic. And she's like, you have some really skills here. Are you interested in languages? He was. And so she connected him with the Ohio Supreme Court's Language Services Program, which we used the Gary Cox Scholarship to help him pay for a test so that he can become a court interpreter, which is now his goal. And he takes the test in February. So it's just really a great resource for veterans who are trying to gain access to that career that they want.
When you talk about that now, folks will hear the scholarship and you talk about the education. Is it for training as well, training expenses? Yes. If folks if I have to go do something or a veteran has to go do, it'll cover that as well?
Yes.
So, I mean, there are so many things that are out there through you folks that can help with veterans who are trying, as you said, to find gainful employment. Do veterans know about these things when they get in there to you? I mean, or do you have to sit down? You talked about the one who's the one who's going to the Supreme Court to get some help through there, but do they know about these coming in, or are their eyes a little bit open when you start telling about the different programs?
Exactly. A lot of times they don't know all that we can do, and so it's just learning. The coach will sit down and just learn about them and then point them towards these resources. And like you said, we're working on getting the word out so that they are aware of these things. Yeah.
Now, these specialists and coaches that you talk about, are these veterans themselves?
Oh yes, many of them are. So that's, I think, one of the things that makes this maybe different and unique is many of the coaches themselves have, a few years back, may have been where the veteran was, and so they've served. They understand the mindset that the veteran is coming from. Not all of our coaches are veterans, but the majority are, and so it's and all of them, I can say, are really invested in the veteran and helping them, figure out what they need to be successful.
When you talk about that, I mean, we've hit a lot of stuff over this past half hour, and it sounds like a kind of funny question to say, well, what's next for the Military Veterans Resource Center, because there's so much going on now, but maybe, Abby, some of those things, programs, services that you folks are trying to put together down the line.
Sure. Well, what's next is we are growing, and as we're trying to grow our programs and services with that, like you said, we have 6 resource centers, but we're hoping to open one up in Northeast Ohio area or Cleveland area. We see a growing need for our brand of services up in that part of the state. We are actually hosting a career fair in Dayton in January 14th, but we're hoping to bring one to Columbus later in the winter, early spring as well. So we also recently just acquired a nonprofit called VITI, or Veterans in Transition Incorporated, in the Chillicothe area, and as well as the Forrest Everhart Memorial Golf Course. So we now operate that. So we're looking at just expanding our services to veterans in that area of the state, but also we're hosting many events for veterans throughout the year at the golf course.
So when you talk about that, and I guess maybe we didn't hit this earlier, I know you talked about how many veterans are in the state of Ohio. How many would you say that you folks are seeing and helping?
Sure. Well, generally between 700 and 800 a year when you combine all of the resource centers together, and that's veterans we've helped. So we've helped find placements or provided food assistance to, anything along the lines.
Now, do you have veterans who will come in just to volunteer and help at the Veterans Resource Center, maybe with the food bank, or just to kind of, I don't know, man the phones, help with paperwork? Can veterans come in to volunteer to get a kind of feel of what you're doing?
Yes, and we're actually hoping to broadcast that more and get more volunteers involved. Right now, primarily, they're helping out with our events and things like that, but we'd like to have more volunteers and, get involved in this, issue of helping veterans.
Because I would have to think that if you have, and you talked about the coaches and specialists, if you have those folks talking a little bit about how it's helped them, maybe having one or two of the other veterans as they're there going, hey, you might want to go talk to that person, we can help. And I also want to make sure we understand that when you talk about the veterans being honorably discharged from the military, we're talking about a whole host of veterans. I mean, a lot of folks may think, oh, she mentioned the Guard and the Reserve, but we're talking all the branches of the military can come in here and get some help from you folks. So, I mean, when you talk about those numbers, there's a lot of people that need help.
Absolutely. And we, welcome anyone who'd like to help. Message us on Facebook or go to our website, milvetsrc.org. You'll find contact information. And if you would like to volunteer, we'd be happy to have you. I know actually in our Hamilton Resource Center just recently has had a lot of volunteers from the Miami College. So I think that's something we'd like to move into more up here too.
And I'm assuming on that website too, they can find the schedule of events and job, like the workshop coming up and the job fairs and those kind of things. Yes. How about a phone number too, Abby, if you could throw that out?
614-230-0662, or you can call us toll free from anywhere at 855-557-VETS.
You've been listening to Focus on Licking County on Talk 790 WHTH. I'm News Director Dave Downey. I'd like to thank our guests throughout today's show, Denison University President Adam Weinberg and Abby Reynolds with the Military Veterans Resource Center. And as always, I'd like to thank you for listening. Have a great day and Merry Christmas.